Like, how are you doing? How is life right now?
I mean, all things considered, pretty good. It took a minute to get there just to kind of find a new normal, especially creatively throughout the pandemic, just because when you're doing writing sessions over Zoom, it takes some getting used to rather than just being in the room with people and creating something where you can like actually look at each other and multiple people can be like doing different things at the same time. So while there are some cons to Zoom sessions, there's actually pros as well because it means everybody focuses because you just have to. And so sometimes they move a little bit faster.
Have you been inspired by the pandemic? Like in terms of new art, or is it just like a lot of people are like, listen, I can't even think?
I can't even think for a really, really long time, but one of my, I guess, like guiding principles as an artist has always been that I just want to bring people joy and I want to make people happy. And so after the first kind of month of like, I don't know what's going on, and then like trying to do all that I can to support the Black Lives Matter movement, it felt really disingenuous to like write pop songs, but then I got to a point where I was like, wait a second, I want to make people happy. And if I can make something, even if it's like 3 minutes and 15 seconds, that helps somebody get out of their head and put someone in a good mood after they've been having a bad day, then that's what I want to do. That's how I want to help.
I'm kind of,
So, been
I,
doing that.
I feel like with your inspirations, like you've said, Shaka Khan is an inspiration, Ella
Hmm.
Fitzgerald,
Totally.
like they also had like these moments where they took the times and kind of flipped it into like really pop romantic songs. Have you gone that route?
Exactly. Yeah, kind of. And we've been using like different generational inspiration. So I mean, I kind of have a little like cornucopia of like different clothing and like styles from each generation that have been inspiring us. We use some like 80s vibes and some like kind of 90s sounding so whether there are good or bad things happening, people can kind of hear those sounds and reminisce, which then leads them to feeling a little better about what's happening right now.
Yeah. And one thing I feel like retro's coming back, and I've been writing a lot of
Mhm.
posts about how I do think the 90s is going to come back. Shout out to your
Totally.
scrunchie. That is 90s.
Thank you. Yep.
Shout it
Yep.
out.
And I was so excited that I put on this shirt and I randomly grabbed this scrunchie and they totally match.
When I speak to other
Mhm.
artists that also consider them influences, they always talk about how they sang for tenderness. And that's something that people don't
Oh,
think to anymore. Like they
yeah.
sing like, please be kind to me, please love me, versus
Yeah.
now there are themes of self-love more, but not
Mhm.
that like come back, let's be tender.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. It's a different vibe now. And I think like fashion wise, the 90s has kind of been creeping back in over the past like 5 years. But musically, I'm excited to see where that goes and bring some 90s R&B back, please.
Oh my
That's the
God.
jam.
Is there a particular like R&B 90s track that for you symbolizes love?
I mean, I guess my immediate, like, Blackstreet No Diggity, and that's not necessarily, like, the love 90s R&B, but, like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things, it's, like, undeniable. The song comes on and you hear the, "Mhm," and it's over. You know that it's that song, and you're like, "Okay, I'm along for the ride because this is gonna be a jam."
It's
I'm
such
either No Diggity or, like, Poison, because it's just so infectious that the beat's poison, and you're like, "I'm in it. Let's go. Let's dance, please."
like, what is your favorite childhood memory with music?
Oof. That's some of my favorite musical memories come from watching live music in the islands, just
Mhm.
because it was everywhere, and I was always a chill little kid, so my parents would bring me to their client dinners. Oftentimes, they were at hotels, and the hotels would have live music, and so I would ask my parents to, like, pull me out of my high chair, and I'd just go sit on the ground in front of the musicians just like, "Wow," and then watching the hula dancers, and there's pictures of me, like, getting up and just dancing with the hula dancers, and my parents clients had kids that I was friends with, and I'd try to get them to come with me, and they were like, no, that's embarrassing, and so I was like, see you later, I'm gonna go dance. And so those, I think those are my favorite musical memories. And because of that, I listened to a lot of Hawaiian music growing up, and then just the music that my parents listened to. So a lot, that's where I get the like Beach Boys, Earth, Wind and Fire, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. Like I had a really eclectic musical experience, even like Clint Black, Garth Brooks, just like kind of everything. And so I just listened to that. I think until about middle school. Like there was music I heard at school, but I didn't really listen to pop radio. So like I joke that I literally was alive during Toxic by Britney Spears, but I missed it.
Yeah.
I just like didn't know that it happened until I really started to learn about that kind of pop music, I think in like high school slash college. So I was a little late, but then I really did my research and learned to appreciate all of that.
And question was, with songs like Heartbroke, what was
Hmm.
the past or the heartbreaking lesson that you
So
put into it?
for me, it's like sonically, I try to bring some sounds from the past in, but for Heartbroke, that was more of a like just a different approach at looking at heartbreak. Where when I wrote the song, I was really frustrated that I hadn't ever had my heart broken, and so everybody seems to talk about, the experience of heartbreaking loss and all of those other great kinds of love, and I was like, well, yeah, I've liked people. There have been like important people in my life, but I don't think I've ever been heartbroken like that. And so I'm like, man, what do I have to do to find a love so great and so magnificent that if I lose it, I'll end up heartbroken?
Mm.
So that was kind of just a flip on like the age old tale of heartbreak.
And do you feel yourself like that's actually like a real blessing that you haven't had a heartbreak right now? Like, are you
Yeah.
the best dater in the world or something, or like the best friend picker?
No, well, I think I pick really good friends, and then I do the thing where like I fall in love with my friends, and then I realize we just have a really special relationship, and it's that kind of thing. But I feel very lucky that I have so many incredible friends in my life that I've just like I'm like I don't know, I'll spend time with them, not for lack of trying to date people trust, but I really take pride in the people that I surround myself with who I are people that I know are going to be in my life forever. And so I guess that's just been my main focus. And I've been like working, So
Yeah.
I joke that like music has been my boyfriend.
That's actually really great because sometimes I don't think people understand that you have to pick beyond fun. And I also
Yeah.
think that that's like my family's from Puerto Rico, so I think island people are not just welcoming, but like there's this
Mhm.
natural friendship vibe to the island.
Yeah.
Everybody knows each
There's
other.
there's something about that where it's just like it's family oriented, and then also your friends become your family, and your friends' family becomes your family. So I've been really lucky to meet a lot of people whose parents invite me over for Thanksgiving and then invite my family over for Thanksgiving and make sure I have a place for Christmas and every holiday uh around I get texts from multiple sets of parents going, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I love you guys."
And in singing for love, and luckily you've never suffered a heartbreak, but do
Yeah,
you in writing these songs and singing them, do you think to yourself, well, now I kind of know what I want in love?
totally. I kind of use the people that I've had relationships with in my past as like I don't know, they kind of like add to the checklist of things that I'm looking for. And obviously like someone could come along and be nothing that I'm looking for and end up being great. But I'll meet somebody and be like, "Oh, okay, I really like this quality in you." And so I know that at some point I'd like a partner to have this. Whether or not you're the correct person for me, thank you for teaching me that this is something that I value.
Hmm. Is there a specific quality that you found?
I think it's just the one of the most important ones for me is for us to be able to talk and talk freely about anything and everything and be able to make each other laugh because at the end of the day like you know looks fade and all of that, but I think it's really important to keep your mind sharp. And so I'm always like, listening to podcasts and reading books about things that I don't know, and learning something. And so I think that's really important to keep your mind sharp, and then you always have something fascinating to talk about. And so that ability to just be able to talk to somebody is really nice.
That is such a singer-songwriter response. Like, can
I
you
know.
I just wanna make sure we're all clear to each other. Like, that's a
Yeah,
perfect,
yeah.
perfect.
That's us.
I did wanna ask, but I know this is random, like, when I heard "broke boy," I kind
Yeah.
of thought to myself, "Would you ever date a broke person?" I kept on thinking
Oh,
that.
I did. So like the inspiration for the song came from many different broke boys that I have dated in the past. But it was one of those things where like they all taught me something, and they were all incredible people, and I would have lost out on some really, really amazing memories if I would have judged them based on their wallet.
I think that's like first I think it's amazing, and I also think it's amazing because sometimes I wonder, especially in our generations and like being young,
Mhm.
I don't know if it's possible for us not to date a broke boy.
Honestly, yeah. So the song came out, and then the COVID pandemic started, and some of my friends were texting me like, "Great timing. Everybody's about to be a lot more broke, so you have a ton of options." I was like, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean to do that. I was like, that was not my goal. So, um, but yeah, I think everybody has one of those in their lifetime, but for me, it's just one of those things where as long as you're working towards your dream and you're passionate about something, and like you're putting in the work, then like, yeah, you might actually be broke, but you're not really a broke boy because you're full in other ways,
Broke,
or
but
you're wealthy in other ways.
broke but not broken.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know you were a theater major, and I
Oh,
did
yes.
theater as well. So I was curious,
Nice.
what is one lesson or exercise? They always have weird exercises on performance
Yep.
that you always keep with you.
I think it's just like looking at your objective for a performance, and so right before I sing a song, I like to think where I'm coming from before. So, I've always enjoyed performing. I think that's my first love, and like being on stage is one of my favorite places to be. And so I take the whole entertaining bit very seriously, and I always try to think of where I am the moment before I start a song. Like I have a song called Little Victories, and it's about like getting in a huge fight with your partner and realizing that you messed up, and just every little victory is the little pieces that bring the relationship back to normal, and the little pieces that make everything feel like it's okay. And so before I sing that song, I like go through my memories, and I go to a place where I messed something up and I had to work at it to fix it with someone. And so I start there. I literally start the song in that headspace so that I can convey the truest emotion to the audience.
You're giving me like guru for love in some ways, for real, for real. But do you feel like that sometimes in being? I feel like you cannot talk about love because everybody sings to love. But like, do you feel in some ways you're a guru for it, or like trying to promote some wisdom about it?
Um, I guess I've never thought about it that way. I just try to find different perspectives. And I mean, and that's what I try to do with everything, is just find different ways that you can look at either a scenario or an object or whatever to kind of open people's minds. But I guess I've never thought about being a guru in any way. I'm just kind of like, this is an interesting way to look at this.
I When you think of performing then, do you see,
Hmm.
I know you've mentioned that it is a very surreal experience and then leaving the
Hmm.
stage is kind of like crashing back down to earth.
Yep.
Do you feel like when you're on stage, you are someone else or you're actually the truest version of you?
I'm the truest version of myself. My friends and I have talked about that a lot, and it just depends on your personality and who you are. But it's kind of like when I'm on stage, I'm still me. I like when I'm off the stage, if I'm like dancing at somebody else's show, that's the same way that I'll be moving when I'm on stage in my show. So it's just like a love for music that's brought out of me in both scenarios. Just one, people are looking at you, and one, people aren't.
And we're wrapping up the interview because going into my final cues, and
Hmm.
you mentioned that in this industry to survive, you have to have like a balance. You have to speak up for yourself, but you have to
Hmm.
be listening. Do you
Totally.
have a specific moment where you spoke up or you listened and it felt really empowering? It actually like taught you and you grew.
Yeah, there was a moment. I have this song that I will be releasing at some point. It's called Sugar Daddy, and that was another one of those songs where I wanted to flip the perspective and look at it differently. And so the chorus, we found a way to sing a comma, which sounds really complicated, but the chorus is, "I don't need no sugar daddy, I just want your sugar, daddy." And so it was one of my favorite songs just because it looked at relationships differently. And so it had more of like an old school sensual R&B beat. And so we I had played it at a couple shows, and my management was like, I don't know if you should do that song on tour. But I had played it in a bar, like where a bunch of, I'm trying to think where I was, in Costa Mesa, which is generally like a conservative area. And so me singing like a sexy song where I'm body rolling and all of that doesn't necessarily go over as well in a bar in Costa Mesa. And at the time, I was practicing to open for JoJo on her US tour. And so I do admit it was a little awkward at some of those shows. And my management was like, I don't know about that one for the tour. And I was like, trust me, if I know JoJo's fan base, I know that they're going to be into this. And like, I'm not one of those where I'm like, I'll play it for them even if they don't like it. And I was like, if they don't like it and it like it doesn't work, then let's take it out of the set. No worries, but let's try it because I think it's going to be amazing. And then it ended up being literally the favorite song of the tour, hands down. And so I was kind of like, haha, I stood up for what I believed in. And I'm really lucky to have people that surround me who believe me as well and go, okay, you're passionate about this. And I'm obviously going to be reasonable about it. If it didn't work, then I'd say, okay, let's take it out of the set. But it worked, and I was really proud.
We went from broke boys to sugar daddies.
Yep.
We're climbing up and we're feeling good about
Right.
it. That's
Yeah.
I like that story because it's such a weird industry. Like you hear the horror
Hmm.
stories, and then there is good. There are good teams, and
Totally.
there is a middle ground, but it's not always easy to find it.
Yeah, I consider myself very, very lucky to be surrounded by the people that I have in my corner and have been in my corner for a really long time. So I know that it's generally not like this. And I'm thankful for it pretty much every day, because I have this little alarm, this reminder that comes up on my phone at noon that says, "What are you grateful for today?" And like 9 times out of 10, it's like my management or my publisher or my label, because I'm really so lucky to work with incredible people who listen to me and who I trust.
Mm. And I wanted to ask, like being in theater, having studied and all that, is there any TV or film or even musical that you feel could translate into a song that you love?
Um, oh man, I mean there's so many. I mean, when I studied theater, I was Tracy in Hairspray, and so that whole musical, I felt like her, so I didn't even really feel like I was acting. And there's so many of those songs that are in that show that are total bops, and I think could absolutely be reworked into something that could somehow end up on the radio.
You think you'll do that for the album? Like, can you tell me anything about an album upcoming?
Um, w- we're currently working on some stuff, so everything's still under wraps right now. But there will be more music, and next year we're kind of looking at more of an album vibe.
Hmm. You think? I think next year will be a really great year in terms of introducing new artists. Anytime
I
post,
hope so.
well, I think anytime when you look at history, there's the crisis and then there's the Renaissance.
Oh, That's a really good way to look at it. There's something brewing artistically, there's something brewing socially. It's really nice. I mean, as awful as this year has been, I think it really teaches, especially my generation, to speak up and speak out, because when we all make our voices heard, then there's actual progress that happens. And so I think that's a really useful tool. I'm sad that we had to learn it in this way, but I think moving forward, it's a great lesson that we can take with us as we move on.
And then my last question
Mhm.
is, you've said places you've been to have inspired your songs. Are there
Yeah.
any places that you want to go to that are
Oh,
inspired already?
all of them. I love traveling so much. I know that I did my little 23andMe genetic research, and I know that I'm Irish. I'm basically a mutt of Europe. I'm just so many different things all across Europe. But I'm primarily like Irish, British, French, and German. And so uh, I've been I've been to the UK, Germany, and France, and so Ireland is like the last one, and I've heard that it's beautiful and that the people are lovely, and so definitely Ireland, but also all over the world. I love traveling. I want to go to Thailand. I want to go to Morocco. Like there's so many different places.
What's your favorite bubbly? Because I just see it back there and I'm really curious. Oh,
Oh my
oh,
gosh,
look.
that one right there, my dad actually made that for me. So when I signed my publishing deal, that was my very first step in my career that allowed me to not be sleeping on couches. That's a bottle of Veuve Clicquot rosé. And so my dad built this contraption where it literally just hangs from it. And so it's hanging on my wall. And so there's a lot of Veuve over there. There's my very first bottle of Dom that I was ever gifted.
Aw,
Yeah,
thank
so
you, Dad. He may not go
it,
on stage with you, but he builds things for you.
yeah, yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, my dad really killed that. And so there's like uh my computer is attached to so many things, otherwise I would get up and show you, but it's really awesome. And that's my champagne corner back there.